The airport was a blur of neon signs, tired faces, and rolling suitcases. Maya Kapoor, CEO of one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the country, dragged her carry-on toward Gate 17. Her heels clicked against the polished floor, but each step felt heavier than the last. 3 cities, 4 meetings, endless handshakes, and she was still expected to attend another conference tomorrow morning. She was exhausted. Not just the kind of tired that coffee could fix. This was bone-deep exhaustion, the kind that makes your mind slow and your heart ache for quiet. Her assistant had tried to book her business class, but it was a full flight. Now she was stuck in economy, middle seat, 5 hours in the air. She didn't care. All she wanted was to sit down and maybe close her eyes before her body gave up completely. As she stepped into the narrow aisle, passengers were already buckling in, wrestling with overhead compartments or scrolling on their phones. She found her row, 14B. Window seat was already taken by a man in his early 30s. His hair was slightly messy, like he hadn't had time to comb it properly. Next to him, in his arms, was a little girl, maybe 4 years old, curled against his chest, sleeping with the peacefulness only children could have. Maya hesitated before slipping into her seat. "Hi," she said quietly, not wanting to wake the child. The man gave a polite nod. "Hey, careful, she's a light sleeper." She noticed the faint shadows under his eyes, the kind that spoke of too many sleepless nights. His shirt was wrinkled but clean, and his hands gently supported the child's back as though letting go wasn't an option. Maya settled in, fastening her seatbelt. The cabin air smelled faintly of coffee and recycled air. She pulled out her phone to check last-minute emails, but the Wi-Fi wasn't connecting yet. For the first time in weeks, she had nothing urgent to do. The safety announcements droned on, and the plane began to taxi. Outside, raindrops streaked across the oval window. Maya leaned back, letting her head rest against the seat. She stole a glance at the man beside her. He had shifted slightly, careful not to disturb the little girl. There was something quietly protective in the way he held her, as if the rest of the world could fall apart, but he'd still keep her safe. The engines roared, the plane lifted, and the city lights below began to fade into darkness. An hour passed. The hum of the plane was oddly soothing, and her eyelids grew heavier with each passing minute. She told herself she'd just rest them for a moment. Not sleep, just rest. But her body had other plans. The turbulence began as a gentle shake, like a soft warning. The captain's voice came over the speakers, calm and steady. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing a bit of rough air. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened." Maya sat up, instinctively tightening the strap. But then the plane jolted slightly and she swayed. Without realizing it, her shoulder brushed against the man's. She moved away quickly, embarrassed, but the movement of the plane kept pushing her toward him. The next jolt was sharper, and before she could react, her head had rested. Just for balance, she told herself, against his shoulder. She intended to pull away immediately, but something unexpected happened. He didn't move. He didn't flinch. His shoulder stayed firm and steady, like a safe anchor in a rocking sea. The faint scent of clean laundry and a hint of baby powder from the little girl drifted into her senses. It was warm. It was comforting. She tried to stay awake, but the rhythmic sound of the engines and the gentle rise and fall of his breathing lulled her. Minutes slipped away unnoticed. The last thing she remembered before sleep claimed her was the quiet heartbeat she could feel through his shoulder. Steady, grounding, and so unlike the chaos of her usual days. When Maya's eyes fluttered, open again, she felt the strange disorientation that comes from waking somewhere unfamiliar. The cabin lights had dimmed, most passengers asleep. Outside, the night stretched endlessly, a dark ocean of clouds. Her head was still on his shoulder. She jerked up, heat rushing to her cheeks. "Oh my, I'm so sorry," she whispered, mortified. He turned to her, a faint smile playing on his lips. His voice was low so as not to wake the child. "Don't worry about it. You looked like you needed it." Maya opened her mouth to respond, but something caught her off guard. The warmth in his tone, not just politeness, but genuine understanding. She glanced at the sleeping little girl. In the dim light, Maya could see her tiny hand clutching the man's shirt. Her hair was a soft cloud against his chest, and every so often she let out a faint sigh, the kind only children make when they're dreaming of safe places. For a moment, Maya didn't feel like a CEO or a woman constantly running from one obligation to the next. She felt human, like she'd been reminded of something she didn't know she'd forgotten. The simple comfort of leaning on someone, even a stranger, and letting go of the weight for a little while. She leaned back in her seat, her pulse slowly calming. The rest of the flight stretched ahead, but she had a strange feeling that something about tonight was going to change more than just her travel plans. The steady hum of the aircraft filled the cabin. Outside the window, streaks of moonlight glimmered across the clouds like silver paint on dark velvet. Maya sat still, unsure if she should strike up a conversation or retreat back into silence. Tersay, man beside her, shifted slightly, adjusting the blanket over the little girl. The tenderness in his movements caught Maya's attention again. Not the rushed, distracted care she often saw in busy parents at airports, but a deliberate, patient kind of love. She finally spoke, her voice quiet so as not to disturb the sleeping child. "She's adorable. How old is she?" The man glanced at his daughter, then back at Maya. 4. "Going on 20, he said with a faint smile. "Her name's Lily." "Lily?" Maya repeated softly. "Pretty name." There was a moment of quiet. The plane rocked gently, a reminder that they were miles above the ground. Then Maya asked, "Traveling for vacation?" His smile faded just slightly. "Not exactly." He hesitated, as if deciding how much to share. "We're heading to Boston. My daughter has a medical appointment there." Maya's chest tightened. She wanted to ask more, but sensed this wasn't the moment to dig. Instead, she nodded, offering a small, understanding smile. "I hope everything goes well." He met her gaze for a brief moment, long enough for her to see the exhaustion there, the weight of worry he carried behind the polite expressions. The seatbelt sign turned off with a soft ding. Flight attendants began moving down the aisle, offering drinks. Maya asked for water. The man requested apple juice for Lily in case she woke up thirsty. When the attendant handed it over, Maya noticed his wallet, tucked between the seat and his leg, was worn at the edges. The leather was cracked, and the stitching had frayed. There was nothing pretentious about him. The girl stirred, blinking awake. Her eyes were large and sleepy, her hair a tangled halo. She looked up at her father first, then noticed Maya. For a moment, she studied her like children often do, as if deciding whether she was safe. "Hi," Maya said softly. "Hi," Lily replied in a small voice. Then she pointed to the magazine, in the seat pocket. "Can I draw?" Her father smiled. "Of course, honey." He handed her a pen from his bag and tore a blank page from the back of the magazine. Lily began folding it instead of drawing. Maya watched with curiosity. "You like origami?" The girl wrinkled her nose. "I like planes." A few folds later, she was holding a paper airplane. She leaned toward Maya and whispered, as if it were a secret, "It's for you." Maya blinked in surprise. "For me?" Lily nodded earnestly. "'Cause you were sleeping and you looked sad." Daddy says giving makes people happy. For a moment, Maya didn't know what to say. She accepted the little paper plane carefully, as though it were made of glass. Thank you, Lily. This is very special. The man chuckled softly, but there was pride in his eyes. She likes making friends on flights. The three of them talked for a while about Lily's favorite cartoons, about the time she tried to bake cookies and ended up with a tray of burnt rocks, and about her fascination with stars. When Lily grew drowsy again, her father tucked the blanket around her and let her rest. Maya found herself asking the question she'd been holding back. Do you mind me asking, is she okay? I mean, with the appointment? He looked down at his hands for a moment, then exhaled slowly. She's been having trouble with her heart since birth. The local doctors have been great, but there's a specialist in Boston who might be able to help. We're just hoping for some answers. Maya's throat tightened. She wanted to say something comforting, but all she could manage was, I hope you get good news. He smiled faintly, though his eyes told a different story. Me too. Hours passed, the plane cruising steadily through the night. Most passengers had settled into silence. Maya, usually guarded, found herself sharing little pieces of her own life. How she'd built her company from scratch, how success often came at the cost of rest, how she couldn't remember the last time she'd had a proper weekend. Sounds lonely, he said quietly. She didn't answer right away, because in truth it was. She turned the paper airplane over in her hands, tracing the folds. Maybe that's why your daughter's gift feels important, she admitted. He gave her a look, the kind that seemed to see past the polished CEO image to the tired human underneath. Sometimes the smallest gestures change the most. Near the end of the flight, another round of turbulence shook the cabin. This time it was Lily who instinctively reached for Maya's hand instead of her father's. Don't worry, Maya whispered, holding the tiny hand gently. We're safe. The girl nodded, her trust absolute. And in that moment, Maya felt something shift. Like a small crack opening in the wall she'd built around herself. She didn't know why, but she wanted to keep holding on. By the time the captain announced they were beginning their descent, the cabin lights glowed soft and warm. Lily was awake now, watching the tiny lights of the city appear below. Maya had no idea that what happened next, as they prepared to land, would stay with her far longer than the flight itself. The seatbelt sign blinked on again as the captain's calm voice filled the cabin. Ladies and gentlemen, we've begun our initial descent into Boston. Please return to your seats and make sure your seatbelts are fastened. The hum of the engines deepened slightly as the nose of the plane dipped. Through the small oval window, city lights began to shimmer like scattered diamonds across the dark canvas of night. Lily's face lit up as she pressed her nose to the glass. It's so pretty, Daddy. Look at all the stars on the ground. Her father smiled and leaned closer to share the view. Those are city lights, sweetheart. Maya watched the exchange quietly, feeling a tug at her chest. Something about the purity of the moment, the way Lily's small voice carried awe so effortlessly, made the world feel gentler than she was used to. As the landing checklist played in the background, Maya realized she didn't want the conversation to end when the plane touched down. Normally, she avoided personal connections during travel. Her flights were for catching up on emails or catching up on sleep. But tonight was different. Do you have someone picking? You up? She asked, breaking the silence. The man shook his head. We'll take a cab. The hospital arranged a temporary place for us nearby. Boston in winter can be brutal, Maya said, glancing at Lily's light jacket. Do you have warmer clothes for her? He hesitated before answering. I packed what we had. We'll manage. Maya didn't miss the pause. Something inside her stirred, the part of her that wasn't a CEO making strategic decisions, but just a human being capable of kindness. The plane jolted gently as the landing gear lowered. Lily reached for Maya's hand again, remembering the earlier turbulence. Without thinking, Maya held it, her thumb brushing lightly over the girl's knuckles. "You're very brave," she told her. Lily grinned sleepily. "That's 'cause I had two people to hold me." Maya swallowed against the sudden tightness in her throat. The plane touched down with a soft thud, tires screeching briefly against the runway before the engines roared in reverse. Passengers stirred, pulling out phones, unbuckling too early despite the flight attendant's instructions. In the midst of the commotion, Lily leaned toward Maya and whispered, "Will you come with us?" Maya blinked. "To where?" "To the doctor," Lily said matter-of-factly. "Daddy says people care when they come." Her father chuckled gently. "Lily." But Maya wasn't laughing. There was something disarmingly sincere about the child's invitation, something that cut through the layers of her usual distance. "I can't tomorrow," Maya admitted softly. "But I'd like to see you both again before you go home." Her father looked at her, a little surprised. "You don't have to—" "I know," she interrupted, meeting his gaze. "I want to." They disembarked slowly, Lily clutching her paper plane, Maya carrying her own bag in one hand and pulling her carry-on with the other. Outside the gate, the air was cooler, the kind that nips at your skin after hours in a climate-controlled cabin. The terminal buzzed with life, people hugging in reunions, drivers holding placards, announcements echoing overhead. At the baggage, claim. They stood together, waiting. Maya caught herself wondering what his name was. She realized she didn't even know. "I never asked," she said finally. "Your name?" "Ethan," he replied. "And you're Maya." She tilted her head. "How did you—" "You signed your customs form in big, neat letters," he said with a small smile. "I noticed things." Something about the way he said it made her wonder what else he'd noticed. About her exhaustion, her guardedness, maybe even the way she softened around Lily. When his suitcase finally appeared on the carousel, Ethan hoisted it up with one hand while keeping the other securely around Lily's shoulder. Outside, the cold Boston night greeted them with a sharp breeze. A line of taxis waited, headlights cutting through the dark. Ethan shifted uncomfortably, as if uncertain whether to say goodbye or keep standing there. "Do you want a ride?" Maya asked impulsively. He shook his head. "We'll be fine." "Really?" Maya nodded, but something in her chest resisted the idea of letting them vanish into the night. She reached into her bag, pulled out a slim leather card case, and held out a business card. "This has my personal number," she said. "Call me if you need anything. I mean it." Ethan hesitated before taking it. "Thank you for more than just the number." Lily looked between them. "Does that mean we're friends now?" Maya crouched down to Lily's level. "Yes," she said. "It means we're friends." A taxi pulled up. Ethan opened the door. For Lily, then turned back to Maya. "Safe travels tomorrow," he said. "You too," she replied, meaning it in more ways than one. As the cab drove off, Maya stood there a moment longer, the paper airplane still tucked in her jacket pocket. She didn't know why, but she had a feeling this wasn't the last time she'd see them. 2 days later, in the middle of another packed schedule, her phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. She almost ignored it, but something told her to pick up. "Hello?" "Hi. It's Ethan," the voice said. "I just wanted to tell you. We saw the specialist today. There's hope. They think they can help Lily." Maya smiled, a warmth blooming in her chest. That's amazing news. And thank you for treating us like more than just strangers on a plane. When the call ended, Maya sat in her office for a long time, the city skyline stretching endlessly beyond her window. Her life was still full of deadlines, meetings, and constant motion. But something had shifted. It was small, almost invisible, like the fold of paper that turned a blank page into a plane. But she knew it mattered. Because sometimes, she realized, the most important flights aren't the ones that take you across the world. They're the ones that bring two strangers together, even if only for a few hours, and leave you both changed.